There's a transit company that's putting in a transit line for Seattle. It's called Sound Transit, and they've commissioned me to do this sculpture. I guess they went through about 600 artists, and where the sculpture is going to be, there's going to be 13 stops along a train line, and in each plaza they're going to have a sculpture. So they chose 13 artists out of the 600 that applied, and they looked through a series of slides of artists, and then they narrowed it down, and I was one of the 13. Well, I had to go out to Seattle and look at the spot where the sculpture is going to go. And so I drove around in a car and looked at the neighborhood. And there's a lot of little bungalows, and people have little gardens behind their homes, and people were really into gardening. And so I got the idea to do plants. And part of what I do, the kind of sculptures that I do, are usually everyday objects. And so I thought about, okay, what everyday object could I do that relates to gardening? And I thought about a shovel, a giant shovel. And then I thought, okay, well, the shovel could be made out of plants. And I thought, oh God, that would be beautiful. It would be a gorgeous thing to have, you know, plants that made up a shovel. And then I did a little maquette of it. Well, a maquette is a tiny little sculpture that is a little miniature replica of the large-scale sculpture. Then they approved the maquette, and then I was approved to do this large-scale sculpture. The sculpture is called Global Garden Shovel, and it reflects plants from all over the globe. The sculpture is about conservation of the world's most precious commodity, which is the plants and trees and flowers that all sustain us. We depend on plants to eat. We depend on them for our oxygen. We depend on them for a lot of things. So it's an environmental sculpture, but it also reflects the ethnic diversity of our world, but also of the Rainier Valley in Seattle, where the sculpture is going. It's going along Martin Luther King Drive, and it's a very ethnically diverse area with people from Africa, Korea, other Asian countries, Polynesia, South America, European groups are there too. I thought that plants from different parts of the world could reflect the ethnic diversity. Well, the first thing that I did was I had to do some working drawings to decide what kind of flowers, what kind of plants, trees, and where they're going to go on the shovel, the placement. Then the second thing I did was create the proportion of the shovel, you know, the size and shape and how tall. Then I had a company make a giant foam structure, and then I put the drawing on my computer, and it was in a digital form. And then what I did after that was I projected it on the styrofoam structure, and I did a complete drawing on the styrofoam structure from the projection. From there I started to do the wax constructions. Yes, it's made out of wax that's the color of chocolate. It's a brown wax. And many people who look at this sculpture comment that they'd love to eat it, that it looks like chocolate, and, and I say, oh no, don't do that. The wax is a great material because it's flexible when you heat it, but it's hard so that you can carve it in a hard state when it's cool, and you can heat it. I use hair dryers to heat it with, so I can have it be flexible when I want it to, and I can have it be hard when I want it to be hard. So I get some wax. I have wax in slab forms and granular forms, and there's a formula that the Foundry gave me that I mixed together. So I have a soft red wax with these hard brown pellets, and I put them together to create the perfect mix of hard and soft. And then I melt them. I have these big tubs that I melt the wax in. The leaves in the plants that I make in wax, most of them I've cast first. I've taken actual live plants and I cast them, well, I made plaster casts of them. And then when the plaster casts are finished, I soak them in a big tub. And after I soak them, they get infused with water. And then I take them over to the wax vats. Then I pour melted wax, hot wax in them. And the wax solidifies and it becomes the leaf or the branch or the flower that I've cast. You know, I started out first applying everything to the shovel, and then I figured out through a series of experiments that the best way to do it is to create panels with leaves on it, with the fruit, and apply those panels separately afterwards, after I construct them. So then that's what I started to do, is put panels of the flowers and trees on the styrofoam, and I attach them with a melted wax. It's kind of like a glue. And I attach these panels and I heat them up so that they'll bend to the form of the shovel. Once I complete a certain section of the sculpture, I'll cut it into sections, which is kind of a scary process to do. I take a saw, I cut it with an electrical saw blade, and it's scary. Sometimes there are parts that I have to repair. And I'll take those sections to the foundry. So the foundry attaches what they call sprues, which are little funnels that will eventually funnel the bronze into the sculpture, but everything is in wax to begin with. Then what they do is they dip this wax section into a vat. The vat has a sort of a ceramic mixture in it it's wet. They dip it in and then they roll it in a silica sand. And they keep doing this till it has a pretty thick layer on it and it hardens. Then they take this hardened shell, it's like a ceramic shell sort of, and they heat it in an oven. And they turn it upside down so all the wax melts out. And it becomes the form that the bronze gets poured into. And it's very hard and it's very durable. And it's able to withstand molten bronze. And so what was once wax becomes bronze. The shovel blade was much larger and it had a lower section that I cut off to send to the foundry. So what you're seeing is the upper section that's yet to be cut up, and I am going to cut that up in a few days actually. So what I've been doing is I've been working from the bottom up, and I've been having to cut up this sculpture as we go along because of the deadline to get this done and sent to Seattle so that they can get it in on time. It's taken a really long time to create this sculpture, much longer than I ever thought. And there's a lot of detailed work in this sculpture. So I've had to hire help and also volunteer help. It's been great to have students and just other artists who wanted to help by volunteering. And so anyway, it's gotten me through this, because to do this all by myself, it would maybe take 3 years. I'm going to be trucking the sculpture in its finished complete state. It's going to go all in one piece on a big truck, and it's going to be trucked across country, and it's kind of costly and kind of a major thing to do that, but it might be fun. It might stop traffic, you never know. This is a public sculpture and there will be a lot of people interacting with this sculpture. It's going to be sticking into a mound, and part of the shovel actually will be in the ground and underground. So it'll be like a shovel digging into the earth, which is kind of cool. It's a subject matter that I think will fascinate people, especially, you know, they'll see it, oh, it's a shovel from a distance, and then they'll say, oh, it has a texture on it, and as they get closer, they'll see that it's covered with plants, and then they'll go, oh, look, there's a banana tree, and look, there's an apple tree, and there's a bird of paradise, and they'll see all the different plants. I have actually mixed the tropical plants and the plants from the northern climates together in one space, which you would never in real life find that, but it's sort of a cornucopia of the world all there on that shovel. So I want it to be very inviting and you know, something that people will be able to recognize and identify with. I think people have various levels of understanding about art, and for people that don't know a lot about art, I think they can really get into this too, because it'll be something they can recognize, something they know. It'll be objects that they can identify with, the plants and trees and flowers that they see every day. And yet it's also a shovel. And so I think various people of different levels of understanding about art, I think, will be able to relate to it. Well, I hope that people will be inspired by this. to revere nature, to revere this very precious commodity of our planet. And, but also, I want it to be fun. I want people to get a kick out of this sculpture. This has been a very ambitious project, and I'm hoping to inspire other artists to see that anything's possible. If I can do a large-scale sculpture like this, so can they.